Good evening, Purple family. Welcome to another episode of Shades of Purple, a Prince podcast. On tonight's episode, I'm going to be revealing my top 10 favorite episodes for this year, 2023. And before I get started, I just once again want to thank everyone who has listened to my podcast all year. I've got some big plans in store for the podcast in the first of the year, first few months of the year, as a matter of fact. I got some big news about me going to Paisley Park, me and my husband. We hope to be able to go during spring break at the end of March to Paisley Park. So I'm going to be doing some lives during that time. I might even do a little vlogging. We'll just see. So I'm super excited about that. 2023 was an awesome year for the podcast. And so I did a lot of interesting, I think, episodes. So I put a post on the Facebook page a little while ago asking for you guys to give me, some of your favorites. I don't know if anybody replied to it yet. Last I looked, nobody had. So feel free, if you listen to the podcast, or even if you don't, let me know why you are, if you're on the Facebook page and you follow my Facebook page or my Instagram page and you don't listen to the episodes, please let me know why. If you need help trying to find my podcast, I can direct you to it. Just let me know, hit me up in the inbox or just put something on the Facebook page, because I would love for you to hear my podcast. And my hope is to start trying to upload a lot of my episodes to YouTube so I can get kind of a bigger audience. So we'll see how that goes. So let's just get right into it. So at my number 10 spot, I have my top 10 favorite Prince live performances that I did back in May. And so what prompted me to do this was I was looking at, the Super Bowl, now the legendary Super Bowl performance that he did back in 2007. And so that got me to wondering, maybe I should do my own top 10. So I did a top 10. And of course, the Super Bowl halftime show was on there. It wasn't my top one. I think my number one was his Purple Rain performance, 1985 at the American Music Awards, or it might have been the Grammys. I always get those two confused because he performed at both, I believe, that year. So I think it was the American Music Awards, the one where he wore that green kind of velvet. It wasn't velvet. What was it? It was green though. The green coat that he wore. I mean, he looked like $1,000,000 as always. That was my number one. But I also had on there, of course, the now infamous, and it's funny now that a lot of his live performances have become so infamous, because at the time it was just Prince being Prince, right? But when he did the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where he was inducted earlier that night, but he did the performance with for the George Harrison tribute, When My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he just tore the stage up, down, sideways. He just did the damn thing. And that was the first time a lot of people that were not familiar with Prince's guitar work were just blown away. And I just think that it's kind of funny, because us Prince fans, we've been knowing that he is the absolute shit on the guitar. I definitely would say he's in the top 5 for sure. If not, to me, top 3. And that's, I don't know, maybe my opinion doesn't amount to too much because I'm not a guitarist, but I know good guitar work when I hear it. I feel like I do anyway. So, and Prince, the way he plays guitar is literally he's making love to the guitar. He even said in an interview that I think the interviewist asked him what was his favorite guitar riff or something like that. He was or how should a guitar sound? And he said it should sound like a woman in climax. So he took his guitar playing very, very seriously and was often on display during his live performances. And another one that was on that countdown was his Purple Rain performance that he did back in 2010. And I think that's one of the Purple Rain performances that I think has just recently got a little, because they did a TikTok short on it. Somebody did. And I think it's just gotten a little bit more recognition it was just awesome. He just went balls to the wall, which he always does. But this one, you could just see he was literally acting with his facial expressions that he was like fucking this guitar. Like, he looked like he was about to come. I hope I'm not getting too vulgar for some of my listeners, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I mean, go back and look at it. 2010 Purple Rain performance when he is just in the zone, okay? And he just looks like he just can't hold it anymore, if you get what I'm saying. So I talked about that, I think, on a lot of on that particular episode, and it was a fun episode. It was an episode that I really had to do a lot of research on, and I've kind of gotten away from that over the past year and a half or so, not because I'm being lazy, but because I really want to try to broaden my horizons. It's just kind of go off the dome about some of my opinions and views on a lot of these things. And I might go back to doing a little bit more research in the future when I talk about some more topics, especially when I'm talking about, like, for instance, I've just recently, my last episode, I talked about like a song analysis, and I did talked about another A Lonely Christmas. So when I go into like detail talking about these different songs and possible motivations and, you know, reasons and looking at the lyrics, now I will try to do more research for those type of episodes. But for episodes where I'm just doing my top 10 favorite, I'm not really going to do a whole lot. I'm just kind of give my opinion. So that's number 10. Number 9 was my Jason Weber interview that I did back in early July, right before July 4th. And Jason Weber, he had been trying to get in contact with me for a little while, and he finally called up to me and was like, "Hey, can I come on your show and do an interview about a book that he wrote called Purple Bananas?" And it was about the influence that Prince had in his life. And it was kind of like basically an autobiography of his life. And I mean, it was a really fascinating book. I was actually surprised how good it was. And he came on to the show, and it was like my first like real interview. And I haven't really got a chance to do too many of those yet. I was hoping this year that I would get a chance to do more of those, but we'll see in the coming months, or, you know, maybe next year. I might be able to try to get to do some more. I was hoping by the end of the year that I was going to be able to get someone from the Prince camp, but that didn't quite work out. Money kind of not where it needs to be for that, but I still hope to try to do that in the future. But Jason was it was a really good interview, and I really enjoyed his book. And I think he's now in the process of trying to get a movie done about it. So Jason Weber, he has a Facebook page, and he's on Instagram as well. He also did some work. He's a journalist, and he did some work with the Insane Clown Posse from Detroit. And I didn't really know a lot about that group until I read his book. And so, like I said, he just had a lot of, he also was a big David Bowie fan as well. So he has some other influences outside of Prince, but he said that Prince was the one who just really got him through some really hard times in his life. And I mean, it was just a really, really good interview. So check it out if you get time to. That's my number 9. So number 8 was Prince a Jerk series that I just did last month. And so what prompted this was me just sitting around trying to come up with new ideas for episodes. And the fact that, when I really thought about it, Prince was kind of a jerk, and not to say that made him a bad person, which I, constantly, explained in both of the part 1 and part 2. I mean, he wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But the fact that, he's a public figure makes his kind of dirty dealings a little bit more public and a little bit more well-known, as opposed as, somebody like you or me, when, our dirty stuff is kept in the closet until, somebody we know might out us, or we out ourselves or whatnot. So I wanted to do that to just give a more of a human side to Prince, because we look at Prince and we see him as the musical genius that he is, but he was also a flawed human being. And so that's why I did that series. So I did that recently. So matter of fact, just check out all these that I'm saying if you haven't already, because I think they're pretty good, I would say. I mean, they're on this countdown, so I must have liked them if nobody else did. So that's number 8. Number 7 was my top 5 saddest Prince songs. And I did that around the 7th anniversary of Prince's death on April the 18th. I did 2 episodes that week. This one and the top 5 myths concerning Prince's death. Now, I didn't put that one on this list, but I did like that episode as well. But the top 5 saddest songs, number 1 was Come Back. And that was the song that he supposedly did about his son Amir. But it was also played at one of the private memorials that they had for him after his death. And it's a really short song, but it is super poetic and super sad in that he's saying, tears go here, and the whole, never say that, when someone has left that they're not coming back, because they will come back and you will see them again someday. And another song on there that when I first heard it, I was just boohoo crying, was The Breakdown. And it was actually one of his favorites. He mentioned it on his Arsenio Hall interview that he did back in 2014. It's on Artificial Age album, and I think it's probably the best song on the Artificial Age album, in my opinion. And he's just talking about, having kind of regret for some of the things that he used to do. And he actually has a lyric where he says that in the song. And I mean, what I really like about The Breakdown is just the beautiful bass line in the song. And I mean, it's just like a lamentful type of song where he's just kind of like, Now, I have a theory about that song, and I can't remember if I talked about it in the episode or not. But my theory is he was actually talking about Mayte in the song. And I don't know why I have a feeling that he's talking about Mayte. A lot of people think that he was referring to Andy Allo, who he had just recently broke up with in the last few years before Artificial Age came out. And you could hear Andy actually doing some backup singing, backup vocals in this particular song. At least it sounds like her anyway. But I don't think it was about Andy. I don't know. The reason why I say I think it's about Mayte, because he has a lyric where he says, there's now a door that you can walk through when it used to be a wall. But then when he says that kind of makes me think, well, maybe he could be talking about Susanna. Because remember back in Sign of the Times era, he made a song called Big Tall Wall. So, and this was around the time that, Prince and Susanna were breaking up. So he could be talking about Susanna. Either way, I kind of feel like he's talking about one of his exes when he says, now there's a door that you can walk through when it used to be a wall. Meaning that he's kind of, broke down, he's kind of let down his guard, his walls, and he's ready to receive love again. And, he still was seeing, women at this time in 2014, 2015. And I just think that he had just finally matured to a point where he was ready to have like a real relationship. But unfortunately, he wasn't married, by the time that he died. But I really wish that he would have had a special lady in his life. And maybe he did, and we just don't know because he was so secretive. But I kind of feel like we would kind of know. I think that he was also feeling, what's her name? The news girl. She has her own show. Tamron Hall. Yeah, that's her name. He was really feeling her around 2015. And she even said that, for a while, it was just the only two people that she would talk to was Prince and her mother. And she actually took a selfie of this red dress and sent it to her. And he actually turned it into a cover for one of his singles. I can't remember which song it was. May I Have Your Attention? I think that was the name of it. And so he turned that into a picture, kind of like what he did with Dave Chappelle when he put out the single Breakfast Can Wait. And he took the picture of Dave Chappelle dressed as him for the skit and put that as the cover for the single. So he did something similar with Tamron Hall, and I think that he really was feeling her. And had he lived, I think maybe they would have got together, and who knows what would have happened. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So moving on. So number 6, we have the Diamonds and Curls book review. Okay, y'all. That book was absolutely bananas. Crazy. And when I reread it, it was even crazier because all of these books that I have put on the podcast, I have read previously. I'm just rereading them to review them. And with the exception of the Vanity book, that was my first time reading it. but all the other books that I have reviewed on the podcast, I've read before. So when I had to go back and reread it, I was just like, she really is kind of out of pocket for some of the shit she's talking about. Like, she was talking about, girls that weren't into other girls, but, wanted to sleep with Prince. So they would have threesomes with him because they just wanted to say that they, slept with him or was with him. And, then she really got on my nerves when she talked about a lot of the things that was going on around the time of Amir's death, which I thought was just really out of pocket and very disrespectful to both Mayte and Prince. And I'm just like, I don't know. It was just too much for me. And then she got to talking about, witchcraft, like these twins that were Mayte's cousins, I think, that were supposed to be her nannies for Amir. And one of them went to the tabloids and said that the reason why the baby died was because Prince was telling the doctors not to allow that he was not going to allow Mayte to get certain type of test to see like how bad the Pfeiffer syndrome symptoms were for the baby, and that and he just told them to just take the baby off life support, and and like all this other, like, they were basically just lies. Like, there were so many that she talked about, and she did say that they were lies. And another thing that she did in the book, that another person, Neil Carlin, this journalist who befriended Prince back in the 80s, said that he didn't like her book because she was, kind of bad-mouthing Prince's mother, but claiming that Prince was the one who was telling her this stuff about, like, Maddie coming home drunk after being, out all night cheating on Prince's dad, and, just all these like wild stories. And Neil Carlin was like, he had met Maddie, and he was like, there's no way that she was like that at all. And there's no way that she wasn't a good mother to Prince, even after Prince stopped staying with her. Like, he said things like, she was still making sure that he was going to his doctor's appointments and taking him to places where he needed to go. And, even Prince was even hanging out up at the place where she worked at, because she became a social worker for the county up there in Minneapolis where they stayed, for the school district. Matter of fact, I think that's what she was a social worker for. And so Prince used to hang up there in her office. And even Prince would say in the Beautiful Ones that, his mother doesn't really get the credit that she deserves for, encouraging him and being, more of an active participant in his career than what a lot of people realize. And so with Prince saying that made me believe that how would he then turn around and say all this other stuff to Kim Berry about her? So it was just, a lot of back and forth. And I haven't gotten around to that Neil Carlin book, but it is a very, very interesting book. And I've quoted it quite a few times in some of my episodes. So just be out on the lookout for that. I'm going to try to put that out sometime next year because, of course, like I said, I have to reread it. But I mean, he really kind of revealed like a different, almost like a different personality of Prince's. Like there was Prince, like the performer, and then there was like the real Prince, And so he basically was saying that Prince was like a character or caricature of his self, if that makes sense. So it was a really, really fascinating book. So at some point, like I said, I'll get to looking at that. But anyway, so that was number 6. I would not recommend that book. I mean, if you want to check it out just to see what she has to say, I've heard other Prince fans say that she was also trying to sell like a lock of his hair online. She's kind of a shady person, and I'm just not feeling her, not feeling the book. But by all means, if you feel differently about it, let me know. Maybe I'm missing something. But she just, I mean, I know her and Prince at one point were probably very close. But my purple sister, Desi, when we were talking, she said she kind of think that they may have fell out, right before she left his employ. And I think that's definitely possible because he, he started doing his own hair once his afro started growing really big. He felt like he probably didn't need to be paying her however much he was paying her to do his hair. But they may have had some kind of dispute, I'm sure. And she never talked about that in the book. She really didn't say why she left or how she left. So there might be some kind of, something with that there. But anyway, only she knows about that. So moving on to number 5, we have the top 20 nasty Prince songs. So I did that back in January, the first of the year. And I don't know what made me decide to do that. I guess I was just listening to some really nasty songs. And I know songs like Come, and then I had songs like Underneath the Cream, which I think was on the Chocolate Invasion album that came out in 2004. I found like some kind of, which is not really a super obscure song, but it kind of is. I think I had Sex Me Not, which was on, I think, the Slaughterhouse. Those are both like a really they're not super nasty, but they're a little something. But one of his nastier songs I definitely think is Come, because at the end of it you could hear him making these sounds like he's like going down on a girl. And of course, I think number 1 though was like Do Me Baby, which also is another song with him making these like little noises and stuff. And you're just like, okay, Prince, what are you doing, man? Like, what's really going on? And songs like Jack You Off, which when you think about it, you're thinking, okay, that's really what, a man would, that's kind of slang for a man, not so much, a woman. Like, you can't really jack a woman off. You could like, there's other like phrases, and I don't know, like maybe that was the thing back there in the early 80s. I don't know. I was a baby. Matter of fact, I wasn't even alive when Controversy came out. So I don't know. So maybe the lingo back then was a little different. Somebody got to hit me to that. But, I mean, you can like finger a woman. You can, let me stop. I don't want to get too explicit, but you get the idea. I just didn't understand that whole aspect. But then there were other nasty songs like 18 and Over, I Want Stabonia. So he's making it very clear that he is not fucking with nobody under the age of 18. And then he proceeds to talk about this sex position called the wheelbarrow. And then there was another one he talked about where he kind of folds you up like an accordion almost. He didn't use that phrase, but you get the idea. And I'm just like, and then he just says, and I start pumping and pumping and pumping. I'm like, okay, tell us how you really want to do it. And then another song, Tell Me How You Want to Be Done. So, I mean, y'all know Prince was nasty. Everybody noticed. And, I think that's probably one of the things that really set him apart from other artists like Michael Jackson, who was very, bubblegum pop. Kids can listen to all of Michael's stuff, just about. But Prince was for adults, for sure. You couldn't really, outside of maybe a few songs, like A Starfish and Coffee and maybe a couple of other songs, he really didn't have too many songs that were suitable for children. And I mean, and that's not the audience that he was, looking for. So it makes perfect sense to me. I don't know about y'all, but check out my top 20 nasty Prince songs. I might have to go back and maybe do a part 2 to that, because there's just so many of them. I think I might have got a good 20, there's just so many, y'all. Like, I really feel like I need to go back and maybe listen to it again and see which ones I got. And then I can go back and go like to the Prince vault and look at some ones that maybe I left off. So be looking out for maybe a part 2 to that one. But that one is number 5. Number 4 is The Sex of It Part 2, Prince's Love Life in the 90s. So last year I did The Sex of It Part 1, which was about Prince's love life in the 80s. And yes, before you asked, I will be having a part 3 coming out. The Sex of It, A Prince's Love Life in the 2000s. Now, there isn't as much going on in the 2000s as it was in the 80s and 90s. But, when we get to that point, I'll see what I can come up with. But for the 90s, I didn't talk about as nearly as many women as I did in the 80s. I think in the 80s, I talked about like almost 10 women. But in the 90s, I only focused on 4 or 5 women. They were Robin Power, Carmen Electra, Maite, Nona Gay, and I think that's it. Just 4. And Troy Bear. So 5. So yeah, 5 women. And I just talked about, how Prince met them, how their relationship began, how it progressed, and how it ended, from what I could find anyway. And there was a lot of rumor and innuendo with a lot of these women that hasn't really been confirmed, because all of the women are of course still alive, but because, you know, a lot of them, especially Troy Bear, she was with Prince so long ago that, you know, she mentioned him, you know, around the time that he died, and then she did some other interviews, because she's like a life coach or something now. And she just said that at that time when she was dating him, that she didn't have it together mentally. And so she had a certain view about men. And she said she felt like she knew that she just made Prince bananas, like drove him bananas is what she said. So she was, you know, honest about where she was. And I also think another woman that was honest about her relationship with him was Robin Power. She was very, you know, she kind of reminds me of, if she's like the Jill Jones of the 90s, so to speak, because she just kept it real and was just very real about, you know, her feelings, about their interactions. And I mean, she just put it out there, you know. And I actually need to go back and look at some of the stuff that she put on Prince.org if it hasn't been deleted. But she went into detail about, you know, how he was in bed, how big his stuff was, and I mean, just all this craziness. So I'll have to look into that. I didn't have time to look into it when I was doing this particular episode. I just wanted to kind of hit the highlights. But yeah, Robin Power, she's something else. And Mayte, of course, his first wife, she's did a whole book about their relationship, which I have also read numerous times, and I'm going to reread again eventually. And now is probably about the time that I need to be doing that, because I am to the point now where, you know, they have at least met, and I still have to review this documentary about how he changed the whole record business. I still need to do that. So maybe after I do that and I talk more about the whole dispute with Warner Brothers, I can then go on and talk about some of the Mayte stuff. So like I said, I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to do at the very beginning of this year just so we can kind of continue to progress through the 90s. So that was number 4. So number 3 was my top favorite 20 Prince ballads, which I did back in February, just a few weeks after Valentine's Day, because, you know, I was in a romantic, sexy mood, and I was just like, let me look at some of, because nobody, I mean, could do ballads like Prince. Like, you've got Scandalous, you've got Insatiable, you've got Adore, you've got the beautiful ones. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful, beautiful songs. And so it was hard. I think Adore might have been my number 1 on that one, because, I mean, why not? But The Beautiful Ones, which is actually my favorite Prince song, was, I think, number 2. And what other songs on there? Insatiable, Scandalous, Damn You. Oh, love Damn You. Like, a lot of his songs. And another one that I like, I Trust You, But I Don't Love You Anymore. I think that might have been an honorable mention, which is on Raven to the Joy Fantastic. So Call My Name, which is on Musicology. Like, he just was just the master of slow songs and just being able to just catch you all in the feels. Like, you knew that, you know, he would just convince you that he was just in love. And those slow ballads that he did on the Prince album, like It's Gonna Be Lonely, is probably my favorite one. But he had another one. What was it called? When We're Dancing Close and Slow. Another one that's just like he's singing in that falsetto, that beautiful, beautiful falsetto. And it just, in that particular song, it's literally like you're dancing to a slow song. And so he really started off with the ballads and just kept them coming. So check that one out too. That's actually, like I said, probably, it is my top 3. So it's number 3. So check that one out. So at number 2, I did an episode called Prince's Top 10 Purple Ladies, which I did back in the first part of April. And what got me to doing this is when I was thinking about my Purple Kingdom series, where I'm highlighting the relationship that he had with different people. I was like, you know what? Prince was like the pimp of all pimps. So let me think about who are some of my favorite women that he dated and worked with. And so I did a countdown for that. And at my number 1 spot, I had my favorite purple lady is without a doubt Mrs. Jill Jones. And I say Mrs. because she is married now, but she's also Mrs. What is that song? She's Always in My Hair. She's also Mrs. She's Always in My Hair. So she was number 1. I think Vanity was number 2. And I can't really remember who was number 3. I have to go back and listen. But I also had some people on there that he really didn't date that I know of, but that he definitely worked with, like Sheena Easton. Then there were rumors that they had dated and messed around, but for the most part, I think they were just musical buddies. Like he wrote some songs for her on her debut album. Sugar Walls was one song that he wrote. And then they, of course, did the duet, You Got the Look, for Sign of the Times. And they also did a duet on the Batman soundtrack, The Arms of Orion. And so they did some things together. I think she's either Irish or Scottish, I think. And she's always spoke very highly of Prince. And they seem to have like that musical synergy that he had with only a few other women, such as Sheila E. And I would say also maybe Kat, in the way that they would dance together. I think Kat was on there too. I think maybe Apollonia was number 3, now that I think of it. But I highlighted some women like that. Apollonia, who else? Kim Basinger, who he dated around the Batman era. Sheila E., of course, both of his wives, Manuela and Maite. And I'm trying to see who else did I put on there. But yeah, that whole group, most of the 80s women, I think probably all of the 80s women were on there for sure. And a few from the 90s. I think Carmen Electra also made my countdown as well. So a good mixture of the Purple Ladies from the 80s and the 90s. So, and also that one got a lot of plays as well. I noticed that the more scandalous, pun intended, that I get, the higher the plays are on the episode. So I'm going to probably look into doing some more scandalous, juicy gossip type of stuff, because that seems to be what you guys like. Even though I'm waiting on someone to try to call me out and be like, oh, that's all you care about is trying to bring up gossip. Man is dead. I'm waiting on that to happen. That has yet to happen. So I guess you guys really love what I'm saying. But, I do it all in good fun and all in because I honestly love Prince. And I would never try to say or do anything that would be disrespectful to his name or his legacy, like real talk. So finally, number 1, drum roll, is my Purple Kingdom episode about Vanity and her book, Blame It on Vanity. Now, like I said earlier, a lot of the books that I have reviewed on the podcast, I have read before. But this was the first book that I had not read previously that I read for the first time. And the book was very interesting. Now, she didn't talk about Prince as much as I thought that she would. But she did, at the same time, that's understandable because she was really talking about her life. And she wrote the book at a time where she had become an evangelist and she was wanting to use her life to bring people to Christ and to, for people that were, stuck in the gutter like she was, deep in depression and drug abuse, which is where she was at one point in her life. She wanted people to see that, hey, you can come out of that, with the help of Jesus Christ and inviting him into your life. And I can appreciate her for that. She did mention about meeting Prince at the American Music Awards in 1980. And, and she talked about how she grew jealous of him, being with other women and how that became a problem for her. So she did kind of highlight, some of those things. But for the most part, she just talked about, her hard life growing up with her father in particular, who was very abusive to her and her sisters, physically abusive. She didn't mention any other type of abuse, but that he would just beat them, and after her father died is when she moved because she was born in Canada, and she moved to the United States and started a modeling career. And from there, she got into the kind of the entertainment industry when she, because I think her date, she kind of mentioned him. She did mention him, but she didn't say that they were together. But she did mention that she was at the American Music Awards with Rick James. And, the whole thing about, Prince stealing stealing Vanity from Rick James might be true, but she never, explicitly said that this was the case, that, she was with him and then she started dating Prince. But, that very well may have happened. But she seemed to be very coy in her descriptions about their relationship, because I was, a lot of people just like, wanting the juicy stuff. But it was still a very good book, don't get me wrong. And I really enjoyed reviewing it for the podcast, because I always kind of thought that, her and Prince didn't have this this beautiful relationship that a lot of people in the camp think that they were just like soulmates. And, the reason why they think that is because they died 2 months apart from each other. And maybe they were soulmates to a certain extent, but their relationship was very short-lived from what I understand. And it wasn't like, I don't think he was as serious about Vanity until she left. And that's what prompted him to write songs like The Beautiful Ones, where he was just really lamenting her and, wanting her to come back. But that was only because he knew that she was done with him, And so I think he was definitely at this time much more serious was starting to become infatuated with Susanna, Wendy's twin sister, and, eventually would propose to her. So I think out of all the women in the 80s that he was most serious about, I think it's definitely maybe a toss-up between Susanna and Vanity. But I lean more toward Susanna, because he did, of course, propose to her and wanted to marry her at one point. And I don't want to say that Vanity was just a flash in the pan, some kind of, long-term fling. I really do feel like they definitely had feelings for each other, deep feelings for each other, to the point where I kind of feel like they didn't even really realize how much in love they were with each other. They didn't recognize it. They just, were just going about life, because they were in their 20s. They were young. They were in their, mid-20s. And sometimes when you're in love with someone, you really don't recognize it. You just recognize, okay, I really dig this person. I like this person. But then when they're gone, you're kind of like, I can't live without this person. Like, I want this person to be around me all the time. And I think that's, what Prince, he came to that conclusion after she had left. I know for the most part, they had a very volatile relationship, because Prince even talked about it on his piano microphone tour, that, they loved each other, but they fought a lot. And she also said that in her book, that, if he said, it was black, she said it was white. If the sky was blue, she said it was green. So they constantly, argued and fought. But at the end of the day, they loved each other. And there was probably a lot of toxicity there. So at some point, it was going to have to come to an end. And it did. I mean, for the both of them eventually. So may they both continue to rest in peace. And Vanity, like I said, she was such an interesting, or Denise, I should say, Denise Matthews. She was such an interesting person. And I hate that both her and Prince are no longer here, because I always kind of thought, well, maybe they would find each other again at some point. But, and maybe they have now that they're on the other side together. Who knows? But anyway, all right. So that is my top 10 for 2023. So I'm going to end it there, guys. Happy New Year. And I hope to go live on the 1st to do my long-awaited review of the Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe Edition. So stay tuned for that. And until then, you guys, love you, peace, and be wild. And may you live to see the dawn. Bye.